Hello there, and welcome into a brand new installment of the Career Competitor Podcast with me, Steve Meller. And as always, we're brought to you by the CG Sports Network, and we are the show that seeks to light the competitive fire within you in order to jumpstart or optimize your career. I could not be more excited to be bringing to you four-time mountain biking world champion Brian Lopes to the Career Competitor Podcast today. So much incredible content coming from a guy that frankly has been there, done it, and gone back to do it time and time again. He is a born competitor. And for me personally, I'm always looking for more content when it comes to whether or not we are born with this trait of competitiveness or it is something that comes through life and through experiences. But in Brian's case, as he makes it very clear through numerous examples within our discussion here today, he is a born competitor, someone that started out on a BMX and started to work his way onto the mountain bike as he progressed through his competitive career to the point of where he was winning championship after championship, being heralded as one of the greatest to do what it is he does. And this is really the most interesting part, I think, of the discussion here today. He's continually found new ways to challenge himself. He makes it really clear, actually, through our discussion that there is such a thing as an expiration date, if you will, when it comes to the way in which we are challenged, the way in which we are driven as competitors. So be sure to pay attention to that particular message and, of course, so many other pieces of great insight courtesy of Brian Lopes on the Career Competitor Podcast today. So without any further delay, let's just jump right into the interview. Four-time world champion in mountain biking, Brian Lopes, joins us here on the Career Competitor Podcast today, and I hope you all enjoy. Hey everyone, before we jump into the interview today, I just wanted to take the time to remind you that if you are listening to me on an Apple device right now, if you're listening to me on Apple Podcasts, be sure to subscribe to the show. Please leave me a rating as well. It means so much in terms of the growth of the show, so please go ahead and just click that 5th star. I think we are worth it. In terms of potentially other platforms that you're listening to me on as well, you can always find ways to follow the show on there too. In the meantime, make sure you're giving me a follow on Instagram, career_competitor. And lastly, make sure you're checking out careercompetitor.com, a really easy access to all of the episodes, to information regarding my competitive calls that I like to release on Mondays to start your week. And just in terms of reaching out as well, I love hearing from people. I love getting feedback. You can find a very easy way to contact me through the website as well. Okay, well, it gives me absolute pleasure to bring on Brian Lopes to the Career Competitor Podcast. First and foremost, on what looks like a very sunny day where you are, Brian. How are you, man?
I'm doing wonderful. Just getting my day started. Just dropped the kid off at school. Gonna do this podcast with you, and then I'm gonna head down south, go ride my dirt bike, and then drive to Arizona, go do some road riding and mountain biking and dirt jumping with some people out there for a day or two, and then head back.
Yeah, and so we've already started to get onto exactly what it is you do. And the simple way of explaining to people who it is you are, you're a 4-time world champion in the sport of mountain biking, but there's so much more to it. Your bio, your resume, however you want to put it, it goes on and on and on. I've looked into it, and there's a number of achievements. But Brian, just fill everybody in on your career within the sport of, because I know it goes beyond mountain biking at times. Just tell me a little bit about everything that is your career up to this point.
Yeah, I started racing bikes at 4.5 years old. Raced BMX all the way into my early 20s. Around 19 or 20. Started dabbling into the mountain bike scene, and kind of over a span of about 3 years, just transitioned from BMX into mountain biking. Did that full time for many years. Kind of dabbled in some other disciplines just for fun and for training. Some road stuff, some cyclocross, some track. But mountain bike has always been my primary discipline. Primarily like downhill, 4-cross, dual slalom, more of the gravity enduro, more of the gravity focused events. And yeah, now I'm 49 and still riding I don't know, probably average of 5 days a week, and still doing some races.
Yeah.
But, just kind of obviously not quite at the level that I once was. But I enjoy just doing a lot of product development and testing, and helping with content and stuff like that for the companies that I work with. But like I just mentioned to you, I ride motorcycles a bit. I've been really into the whole e-bike craze and upward rise over the last couple of years. One of my main sponsors is actually Yamaha bicycles. So I spend a lot of time riding e-bikes, and just this year, kind of doing a few races. I've already done a couple races this year. Going to do another one next weekend. So doing a lot of that. Really, we could talk about that a little bit. That's really opened my eyes a lot to just the routes that I can do now, and the things that I can ride up, and and maybe a lot of the misconception that comes along with e-bikes, and them being like easy, or not, you're not getting a workout, or all the things that people that are e-bike haters talk about, that probably have never even ridden e-bikes.
Yeah, I love the very nonchalant way in which you just explain what it is you're doing, and it sounds like a lot of stuff, man. It sounds like you're very busy, and I think that's where you and I are certainly very similar in that regard. It sounds like you have a lot going on, plenty on your plate, but it doesn't sound as though any of it's really overwhelming you. You kind of taking it all in your stride, and you seem to have a good amount of control over all these different ventures that you've got going on. And before because there's so many of those things that I definitely want to get into, but one thing that's always fascinated me in sports such as yours is the longevity that people are able to do it with. You just referenced there, almost 50 years old. A lot of people that do professional sport, there is this so-called lifespan. Probably, I would say the main exception to that is golfing, right? Golfers just play and play and play, and something is physically aggressive at times as mountain biking is. How do you find that fire within you still? I know you said that some of this comes back to being able to sample products and give insight to people, but how much of this is just pure passion, pure competitive drive to still want to show that you can do these things?
I think a very large percentage is that. Exactly. Yeah, I was never pushed to, to be competitive or to go do these races. And I think that's just something that you're born with. And, you make a decision if you want it bad enough, and how much time and effort and heart you'll put into it. Like I said, I have a kid. He's 7.5. People ask me all the time, "Oh, is he into bikes? Does he race? Does he like?" I'm like, "Nah, he rides a bike, but he's not like diehard. He's not like every day going, 'Daddy, let's go ride,' Right. He's more into soccer and playing with his friends, and I just let him do what he wants. I think, growing up, from such an early age racing, I saw a lot of kids that were super talented as they were young, and even into their early teens, that just get burnt out, they just quit, and kind of move on to something else. So I don't really believe too much in the pushing part of it. I've done some coaching over the years with other cyclists and motocross athletes, and I'm not that kind of person who's like cracking the whip. I'm like, sure, dude, if you don't want to do it, like, it's not affecting me. It's not my career that isn't going to succeed. It's yours. Yeah. So, so I think, like I said, a large percentage of it is just that inner fire. I don't know why I had it, but
well, dude, one thing I'd love to learn is just really usually as these sports have evolved, and I'll put it into this sort of genre of, say, like X Games sports. I think there was a huge drive within those sports through the 90s, and a lot of people became household names off the back of it. And one thought I was just having here was that when you first started investing so much time and effort into mountain biking, what did you know that you could actually go on and do with it? Did you know that you could be quote unquote competitive with it? Was that something that you believed was a possibility?
Yeah, I did, because there was some other BMX racers that were older than myself at the time that were making that transition over to mountain biking, and they were having a lot of instant success. And just being aware that, like, for instance, at that time, like a nice BMX bike probably would retail for I don't know, $500, $600, $700, right? And a nice mountain bike at that time probably retailed for $5,000,
right?
So just seeing that demographic of where that industry is as far as costs, and the barrier of entry for people to get into it, and the it's just a more adult oriented sport. So with that, there was just more money involved in that sport. But like I said, yeah, I saw a lot of older BMX guys that were making that transition and doing fairly well rather quickly. So I had a pretty good idea that I could probably do halfway decent, at least at the beginning.
That's awesome. I think the most interesting part about all of this is that it seems as though you were just so invested in the skill of whether it was BMX, whether it was mountain biking, that you were just very present within your journey of just going from one stage to the next and discovering your ability to compete with these other people. And, you talked there about how your competitive drive comes from this fire within, and it doesn't need to be necessarily externally lit, as often as some people may need that to be. Talk to me a little bit about just your, let's say, ability to remain present within every single time you hop on the bike, because I've spoken with some elite level surfers as well, and they talk about this ability to be so present in the moment when you are out there on the waves. Just talk to me a little bit about where you are, just sort of venturing through all these very difficult courses out there, and that ability to not get distracted and be focused on what's happening in front of you.
Every situation is different, but it's those times when you aren't as focused, or you take things for granted, where accidents happen or races are lost, things like that. So yeah, I think the biggest difference in a lot of sports is really, or what separates people at the top in a lot of sports is really just the mental part of it all, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of great bike riders out there in the world, and some of them just crack under pressure, or can't handle the pressure, or just again, like I said, I've dealt with training a number of different athletes and motorcycles and bikes, and you see it, right? And you try to, as a coach, you try to you almost become more of a little psychologist too, right? You everybody's different, everybody works different, and just because one thing works for one person doesn't mean it works for another person. So like I tell people, I'm like, this could take a while to figure out. Like, I can't just tell you to do X, Y, and Z and magic's going to happen, right? Like, some people, like we said, probably require that, that cracking of the whip, and other people don't. Some people need to be calmed down. Some people just need to be reminded of things, and encouraged and supported. So, yeah, I think it's different for everybody, really.
Yeah. And in terms of just looking now more so into your ability to still be competitive and your ability to still perform, as you mentioned that you're going to be going to do some races here pretty soon. How do you gauge success now? How do you get off the bike when you're done and say, shit, I'm really happy with what I did there, or damn it, like, that just wasn't good enough? Like, are you still holding yourself to that level of accountability as a competitor, or are you just now more just enjoying each opportunity that you have?
I guess, from competing for so long, sometimes I don't look forward to the competition as much as just, the riding and I wouldn't even say these days like I'm training, like I ride my bike a lot, but I'm not on any strict schedule. I'm not like,
Sure.
Doing certain things every day. I just kind of do whatever is fun for that day, or some other people are riding, or whatever the case may be. But I think I gauge success just off of how I think I did in the race. For instance, this race I did about a month ago, granted I'm racing an e-bike, so it's a little bit different, and this is it's kind of new for me, and really for the sport, the whole e-bike racing. And these bikes that we're racing are class 1 bikes. So they have an assist up to 20 miles an hour, and then the motor shuts off. So you attack these courses a little bit different. And I'll give you an example. Like maybe on a regular bike, you might take a line where you are carrying a lot of speed through a corner because you need to carry that speed down the next straightaway. Whereas on an e-bike, you might go like, shoot, I might just take the inside. The inside line is a lot shorter. And now that I have a little bit of assist to get me back up to speed quicker, I could take that inside line. I don't have to worry so much about carrying the speed out of the corner. So there's a little bit different strategy. There also, because the bike only assists you up to 20 miles an hour, and typically the bikes are quite a bit heavier than a regular bike, on average, probably around 20 pounds. So when you hit that 20 mile an hour kind of assist number and the motor shuts off, it's a heavy bike to pedal.
Right.
So now it takes a little bit different kind of power, to pedal a 50-pound bike versus a 30-pound bike. And then you kind of get into like, okay, do I even try to pedal past that 20 miles an hour? Because it's so hard to pedal past 20. You're like, okay, I might go 21 or 22, but I'm like killing myself to do it. So there's just like a lot of different things to think about. And then, but anyways, the first race I did this year, there wasn't a whole lot of people in the e-bike class. So what I did personally for just my own kind of goal settings was compare my times to the young pros that were on I'm just calling them analog bikes. And in my head, there was 3 different courses. And in my head, I was like, I think I could probably beat them on one of the courses, because I thought maybe the bike would be an advantage. But the other 2 courses I thought would be a disadvantage. And it turns out in the end, I did beat them all on the one course that I thought, but I also beat them all on another course that I didn't think I had a chance to beat them on. And then on the 3rd course, only one pro beat me by like a half a second. So it turned out I was like, well, maybe this bike isn't as a disadvantage some of those courses I thought, or maybe I was just hauling ass. I don't know.
I love it. And
so long story short is I gauged it as that was a successful race. I was happy with my results and my times, and I had good clean runs. I didn't make any big mistakes. So
yeah, it's really cool. I just find it so fascinating in sport where you have these many years separation in age gaps, and just having come off the back of the NFL season, seeing a guy like Tom Brady winning another Super Bowl at his age, and people talking about quarterbacks every single year coming into the NFL, and this guy's the next big thing, this guy's the next big thing, and here's this guy 41, 42, 43 years old still putting great numbers out there. And I find it really cool that you're able at 49 to look at these younger pros and say, all right, you got a bike and I got a bike. We're gonna see what we can do today. We're gonna compete. And I just think that's so incredibly cool, mainly because it proves that, if you're good, you're good. And I've always believed that. I've never bought too much into, of course, there's physiological components to all sports, but I do believe sometimes that if you want it bad enough and you are good enough, that these so-called limitations that people say are out there really are there for either for you to believe or ignore. And it sounds as though for the most part, you just continue to ignore them and say, hey, I'm still able to do this stuff, and I thrive under the ability to compete with these guys. And for me, that's a lot of fun. When do you foresee yourself ever getting to a point and saying, hey, okay, maybe now's enough, I've had enough?
Oh man, I don't know. I try not to think about those kind
Try
of
not to
things.
think
I
about
just
those
keep
things.
doing it.
That's too negative.
I just, yeah. I don't really think about stopping. Like I said, I think maybe the competition part of it, for me personally, I think it just, it gets a little bit draining sometimes, only because I just put pressure on myself. Like if I'm gonna go race, like I'm going there to try to do the best I can do, and I'm not just going there to have fun. I mean, yeah, it is fun, but like people say that. Like people even said that at this last race I went to. I won't get into the details, but they're like, it's just a fun race. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's a race. Like we're here to compete. Like, don't you want to do as good as you can? If you just want to go have fun, that's fine. But let's just go ride then. If we're just going to have fun, why are we signing up for a race? So I don't know. I don't really think about that too much. And I don't think about age really. Like, well, it's kind of funny. Like for me, I say, so in cycling, your racing age is how old you will be at the end of the year. So my birthday's in September. So technically my racing age is 50 this year.
Right.
So when you kind of get into the national and world level races as a master, they break them down into like 5-year increments. Right. So like if I was to go do a Masters World Championships, I would be in the 50 to 54 age bracket.
Gotcha.
Which, I mean, 50 sounds old as shit to me, but I don't feel 50, like, I don't feel 50. I don't think I act like I'm 50.
Right.
I see, sometimes I'll see somebody who's, I don't know, maybe they're only 30, but I think they're older than me. Right.
Right.
Just, that's how I have it in my head. So yeah, I don't think age is like a big, a huge factor. I mean, obviously at some point it starts coming into play, but for me, like I stopped kind of competing in my disciplines that I, was really focused in on when I was like 37, 38 years old is when I kind of stopped doing those and started doing some other disciplines. And like enduro, for instance, I started doing that, and I was pretty high up there as far as like a world level at that age in enduro. But I mean, the only reason I really stopped doing like 4-cross and slaloms and stuff like that at 37 is because I was just getting a little burn on it. I was kind of won, more than I ever imagined I'd win. And I was just like, what, I mean, is it really going to matter if I win another world championship or another World Cup title? Like, I just like, man, I've done it enough. Like, it's time to move on. Like, experience some other things in the world of cycling, and and just step back from that. I mean, I probably could have kept going. I don't see any reason why I couldn't have. I didn't really want to.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point though, because this isn't a matter of just being in the same experience for 35, 40 years. This is something that you have found ways to ever so slightly make a reset or refresh or recharge in some way, shape, or form, make the challenge ever so slightly different. And I think for a lot of people listening to this, if you are feeling a little bit, untested or slightly unsatisfied with the era, the phase that you're going through within your career, it might just be because you've been doing this particular very specific area for too long, and it's time to just find something new. But you can still remain connected to this world. I relate to this massively. It's partly why I'm doing this podcast. I felt as though in my role as a coach, I was only able to influence so much when it came to mentorship and being able to fuel people to compete. This for me was a different challenge in that, and it opens up so many different doors, and I get to learn about mountain biking and things like that I knew I never necessarily would. So I think that's, for me, it keeps me so honest. It forces me to challenge myself as a competitor, even though it's a very different world to what you experience. But I think that's really important to people listening. Like, this isn't someone who's been on the same bike doing the same course for 35, 40 years. This is someone who's found different ways to challenge themselves when they feel as though they've maybe exhausted one particular route that you've been going down. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but I could see that, like, as a swimmer, I could almost see that getting more exhausting, just because, like, I mean, how different is one pool than the other?
Right.
Or how different is lane 2 versus lane 4? Like,
right.
At least when you're going to mountain bike races, it's not like an oval track that's cement, it's
Sure.
always a different track, and there's different dirt and different scenery and all that stuff. But I think if I was, swimming laps like you in a pool, I would just be like, oh man, I've done this,
Right.
friggin' 100,000 times, right? Like,
right.
Maybe now it's time to go, like, do ocean swimming. At least, like, I get to go to different beaches and, have a different scenery, or, have to deal with waves and whatever else, right? Like, I don't know.
No, I get that. It's partly why there is a very, very well-established, let's say, shelf life when it comes to a swimming career. I think people just get sick and tired of looking at that black line at the bottom of the pool after a little while. So trust me, I get that 100%. Brian, I want to go back to something that you mentioned there at the beginning with the all kids bikes. I think going back, this really actually piggybacks nicely off what we were just talking about, finding some different challenges, finding alternative ways to be challenged, to be competitive. Firstly, tell us a little bit about all kids bikes. And secondly, just sort of tell me exactly what it is that's really gotten you so involved in it.
Yeah, well, All Kids Bike is a nonprofit program where the goal is to get every elementary school across America to implement cycling as a PE kindergarten class.
Awesome.
A lot of kids these days don't grow up knowing how to ride a bike. Probably the same, I would assume, with swimming. There's
Absolutely
less pools out there, right? Less people are learning how to swim, and swimming could be a life-saving
100%
tool. But just a lot of kids are not growing up learning how to ride bikes these days, and I think that just leads to all the things that we already know, which is more kids spending time behind screens, playing video games, not getting outside, not exercising, not riding their bikes to school. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I think it's a very, very small percentage of kids that ride their bikes to school these days. And I mean, I remember I rode my bike to school every day to elementary school.
Me too.
So anyways, I think All Kids Bikes is doing a great job by just trying to implement it. It's the quickest way to get kids to learn how to ride bikes and introduce them to bikes, is just teach them at a very young age in school, make it one of their PE classes. And All Kids Bike is trying to do it, make it as simple as possible for the schools, right? We raise the money, we deliver the bikes, we deliver the curriculum and the instructions for a teacher to follow, and the helmets, and make the bikes go from a push bike to a pedal bike after a certain amount of time. And just make it a slam dunk, easy, 1, 2, 3 implementation into a school.
It's such a fantastic cause, and you and I are very much cut from the same cloth in terms of, as kids growing up, just being outside. And I was a bit more like your son. I was trying to turn anything I could into a soccer goal, and turn anything I could into a soccer ball. And I was just kicking stuff, usually at the expense of the expense of the shoes that my mom had just bought me, or whatever it was. But in terms of just that was just my life. I didn't know what it meant to be inside. And, I think from from the challenges that you're probably facing with this, how have you been able to maybe meet some of the resistances so far that probably come with just as simple as getting a kid to leave his whatever console inside the house behind and just get outside? Have you felt the resistance as being as significant as it seems to be?
Well, I mean, like, as a parent, I mean, I'm I'm also guilty of, throwing the iPad in front of my kid as well. Sometimes you just, if whatever, if it's dark outside or if
Sure.
it's raining or whatever, it is easy and kind of just like a built-in babysitter at times. But
Right.
I always try to get the kid outside and just do anything, whether jump on the trampoline or kick the soccer ball or go for a ride. Just try to get them out there, and especially when we are on our bikes, take them on little adventures. And yeah, I don't know about you, but when I was a little kid, like, I mean, we had a little bit more freedom. Maybe the world was a little different then,
Sure.
as far as freedom goes. But
Mm.
yeah, we just take off and go ride, and go ride into the hills, and dig jumps and make forts, and just play and come
Yeah.
back when the street lights were coming on, or I heard my dad whistle. And so I think the bike just gave me a lot of freedom and ability to roam and explore as a kid.
Mhm.
And nowadays, in some ways things are more difficult, and in some ways, in some areas, cycling is a lot easier for kids. For instance, like a place like Bentonville, Arkansas, where we did an event there last year in November, and in the Northwest Arkansas area, the infrastructure of cycling is huge there, and
Mm.
there's just hundreds and hundreds of miles of new trail being built all the time, greenway bike paths, pump tracks, all weather bike parks. And so as a kid growing up in and around those areas, I mean, it's game changer. We have these things called pump tracks. I'm not sure if you know what they are, but they're basically just a bunch of little rollers and berms, and
Right.
usually they're well, back in my day they were made out of dirt, but now they're a lot of them are made out of asphalt or concrete, just for the simple reason that there's no maintenance, right? Once you kind of
Mm.
build them, they're there. And when I go to some of the bigger pump tracks out here in California, like, I'm blown away how many kids are there,
Yeah.
whether they're on scooters, bikes, skateboards. I mean, it's just packed.
Yeah.
Is So I think if the kids have something fun to ride, they'll get out there, and they'll
Sure.
want to be outside.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think
But
that's probably the next step. I'm assuming with all of this is it's one thing to get the bikes into schools and to provide curriculum and really encourage them to get on their bikes. And I'm sure there's a whole nother step to this that's maybe required eventually, where you're trying to encourage local governments, councils to really provide opportunities for all these, hopefully many tens and hundreds of kids that are suddenly now making a demand like, hey, I got a bike, I want to use it, give me somewhere to use it.
yeah, absolutely. And all these cities and areas are different, so it just kind of depends what they have to work with. But like,
Mm.
I mean, even in like New York City, there's a pump track right
Yep.
in New York City, right on the bay. It's pretty amazing.
Mhm.
You don't really need a huge area to build something like a pump track.
Yeah.
It's relatively small area. I could build like a pretty fun pump track just on the plot of land that my house is on, which
Right.
is only a 6,000 square foot lot. So yeah, but it's and I'm still learning, and just trying to work with great people, like All Kids Bikes and other people that I'm meeting along the way to help kind of facilitate it. Because like I try to bring every kind of analogy that I have in my life is I always try to bring back to like what I know best, which is racing or riding bikes,
Right.
probably like you swimming,
Sure.
and like I tell people, I'm like if somebody says like, oh, why don't you get a pump track built in Laguna, I'm like, man, to be honest, I don't really even know where to start, right? Like, I don't know the process, I don't know who to talk to, I don't know,
Yeah.
the lingo to use with these people. I'm not going to know how to answer a lot of questions. but I would love to be a part of a team and help where I can um, be of most value to somebody that knows how to push that through. I go, just like, if I try to do it on my own, it might take me 5 years, and somebody else they might be able to get it done in 6 months.
Right.
Like, I don't know anything about it. It's kind of like, if you take me to the pool, like, it's going to take me friggin' an hour to swim a mile, and it's going to take you, 10 minutes.
Right.
It's like, you're more efficient. You're better than me. Like, that
Right.
swimming is not my thing. So,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. No, I mean, it all makes perfect sense. And I think it's so pivotal to have someone who has been there and been doing it on two wheels the way you have for so long now. Tell people where they can find out more about yourself and just follow you online, etc.
well, I guess my Instagram is just Brian Lopes, Twitter, Brian Lopes. I have Twitter and Facebook, but I kind of try to keep it just as simple as Instagram most of the time. The whole social media stuff. It's a little bit of a job in itself.
That's where you show your age, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when people talk about like YouTube and TikTok and all this stuff, I'm like, oh man, I don't even know. Like,
right.
I'm lucky if I can, find a few things to post every week. It's just like it just kind of becomes a job in itself, and
Absolutely.
Some people are amazing at it, and I was just having this conversation with somebody recently. I was like, man, it's like, I get it, and I like to post stuff and show people and encourage people and get cool messages from people and stuff, but sometimes I just want to go ride. Like, I don't want to have to worry about like, oh, let's film this, or oh, let's shoot this, like, or, let me get my GoPro, I'm gonna go shoot this or that. But yeah, anyways, just Brian Lopes on Instagram, and of course allkidsbike.org. You can go there and learn more about All Kids Bike and how you can get involved.
Brian, listen, man, such an absolute pleasure having you on, and I'm really glad we've been able to do this, and all the best with everything going forwards. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll talk again one of these days.
Such an amazing opportunity to have Brian Lopes join us on the show here today. And again, like I alluded to at the outset of this particular episode, I just love and admire the way that Brian has found new ways to constantly refresh the challenges that he has within his life. He has this ability, it seems, to actually see beyond the moment where he can plateau or potentially even regress, and find these new challenges before he may even detect that he 100% needs them. And I think that's a incredible skill, just an innate ability to understand the need for him as an individual to find new challenges before anything within his life becomes stale. And I think that's a takeaway for you, the listener, to really hold on to. Maybe there are moments within your life today that you find yourself getting a bit stale with things, and you could potentially find some new ways to reinvigorate yourself when it comes to your career and certain opportunities that you have within your day-to-day. Just certainly some great food for thought there, and I'm sure there's one or two other components within our discussion that you were able to take away as well. So again, cannot be more humbled, more appreciative of Brian's time, someone who frankly is one of the greatest to have done what it is he does, and it's such a blessing for us on this show to have him come by and share so much incredible insight and wisdom in relation to being just the optimal competitor that he is within his world. So hopefully you really enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. In the meantime, make sure you're giving us a follow, subscribing, all the stuff that I always encourage you guys to be doing. Let your friends know as well. I always appreciate people passing along the message of our show to others, and I really think that an episode like this is a great example of what it is we provide in terms of what we're trying to do with this show. So don't be shy. Let your friends know. Tell them what we're doing here. And as always, I appreciate you all listening, taking the time out of your day to become a little bit more fired up in relation to your career, finding new ways to optimize your growth, optimize your performance. So in the meantime, best of luck with everything you've got going on. Look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. Bye for now.